Okay, welcome everyone to this wonderful event. I would like to ask you, first of all, to silence your cell phones, the bane of our existence, so that they don't go off during the presentation. So my name is Sergey Niskordov. I'm a co-director of AirUCI, which has the honor of organizing this event. And as a first order of business, I would like to thank Melissa Sweet, who put hours and hours in organizing this event. She's very shy, she's not here, but let's go and clap for her anyway. Oh, there she is. So there is Melissa, so that's who we are clapping for. Okay, so I promise I will not take too much of your time. My role is to welcome Hal Stern, who is the Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor, as well as a Professor of Statistics at UCI. And essentially, he's responsible for running administrative and research aspects of the university. And I should point out that University of California, Irvine is one of the top universities of the country. So it takes a really special person to run the university, and we are really fortunate to have Hal to be here and kick this event off. Hal.
Thank you, Sergey. That was very kind of you. And you also addressed one of the things I usually have to get up and say what a provost does, but I'm basically the chief operating officer of the university. So thank you all for being here for a very exciting event. And in fact, one of the best parts of my job, being high up in the administration, is to get to participate in events like this one. I'm really pleased to be here to welcome Tracy Dyson to visit us, to visit our campus, and to be here tonight. Start with one quick story, which is, I will be brief because we're not here for me, we're here for Tracy. But I'm sure many of you have seen this. I'm a big college football fan. I watch a lot of college football, and during the bowl season, this commercial ran over and over and over of the Capital One. There are 3 people at a school for like career day, and there's the Capital One bank guy, and there's Derek Jeter, the shortstop, world famous shortstop in the Yankees, and an astronaut. And all the people in the audience are asking questions, and they all just want to ask questions of the Capital One guy. Like, how do you get to be the Capital One guy, right? So, and the commercial works in part because everybody thinks it's really cool to be an astronaut. So you don't have to say anything, and you're like, why are you talking to the nerd? You know, I mean, some people want to be baseball players, and I'll confess I was one of those, but more people want to be astronauts. So I love that story because it really sets the stage for tonight. There will be much more said about Tracy in terms of introduction later, but one thing I want to note is that she is a California native, and I think an example of the great things that happen in higher education in the state of California. She's a graduate of Cal State Fullerton, got her PhD in chemistry from UC Davis, and then, of course, had a postdoctoral fellowship in environmental science here before joining NASA and going off to greater places. And no, I won't sing, don't worry. Before we get to Tracy's remarks, what I wanted to do is really say a teeny bit more about AirUCI. So Sergey mentioned it when he came up here. They are our host for tonight, and the first thing I learned today, AirUCI stands for Atmospheric Integrated Research at UCI. So that's good. Forevermore AirUCI in these remarks. But it's an interdisciplinary research unit on campus, and I'm sure that you all join me. We're really grateful, Barbara and Sergey, for your part in bringing this Tracy here and this event tonight. So thank you for that. AirUCI builds on UCI's rich history in atmospheric chemistry, which of course goes back to Professor Sherry Rowland's Nobel Prize-winning research on the depletion of the Earth's ozone layer. I hope you had a chance to meet some people while you were waiting. AirUCI involves more than 30 faculty members from 5 different schools at UC Irvine. That is the School of Physical Sciences, the School of Engineering, School of Public Health, the School of Biological Sciences, School of Social Sciences. Many of their deans are here. And these 30 faculty come from from 8 departments spread across the campus. So it's really the best of what universities can do, bringing scientists together. The AirUCI faculty address challenges related to pollution, climate change, sustainability. And while they're doing the research, they're also training the next generation. And so we take great pride in the work that they've done. Just one quick example of a kind of current research effort at AirUCI, which is understanding the environmental impacts of gases and particles that are emitted from brakes and tires of automobiles. And it's really interesting because obviously we're all well aware of the dangers of fossil fuels, but even if fossil fuels go away, our cars will still have brakes and tires, and we'll still. So Barbara and Sergey and the other faculty, among the many projects, are studying the impacts of this and hopefully how to mitigate to some extent. One last toot the horn for AirUCI. Our research units get reviewed every few years, and in its most recent review, AirUCI was ranked by some outside reviewers as one of the top 3 elite research groups in atmospheric science worldwide, along with ETH Zurich in Switzerland and the Max Planck Institute in Germany. So AirUCI is a gem at UC Irvine, and we take great pride in it. So I said I would be brief, and I will. Back to tonight's event. UC Irvine takes great pride in the members of its community, its students, its faculty, and staff, and really excited tonight to hear from one member of our UCI family. So Tracy, welcome back to UC Irvine. We're honored to have you here, and like everyone else, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And I will turn the program back over to Barbara Finlayson-Pitts to do the introduction. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So before we get on to the main event, I just wanted to ask everyone to keep all our friends and neighbors who are suffering so much with these immense losses, with the fires and the trauma that people are undergoing. I'm sure that most, if not all of you, recognize that climate change is playing a major role in these sorts of disasters. And Tracy will show you, I think, probably some views of our planet from space. And it makes you appreciate how fragile this planet is. And so I'd really ask each of you, when you leave tonight, to stop and think about what you can do to contribute to addressing climate change, so the kind of thing we've been seeing for the last week does not become our new normal for us or your children and grandchildren. So on to the really fun stuff. So it's a real pleasure to welcome Tracy back to UCI. So being an astronaut sounds like it's very glamorous, but it's a lot of work and it requires a lot of support from friends and family. And her #1 supporter is Dr. George Dyson. So George, if you would stand up for a moment, please. So we're really pleased that George could join you on this trip. It's very special for us. So George has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then he joined the Navy, and he was a Navy aviator, like flying planes off ships right in the middle of the night, that sort of thing. Not at all risky, I'm sure. But he was telling me a few years ago that he was based up in the Central Valley, and as he'd drive by a prison, he got curious. He'd drive by every day on the way to work, and he went in and asked, could he volunteer? And what that ended up doing was becoming really his life's passion. And so he's gone on and gotten a master's and a doctorate in divinity and ministry. He's a chaplain now for the Navy and also continues his prison ministry. And on the side, he flies for Southwest Airlines, right? And he's also the reserves in the Navy. So at their wedding, the minister started out by saying, "We have 2 disturbingly accomplished people here," which I thought was an excellent description. So it's a real pleasure to have you here, George. I really appreciate you being here. So Tracy and I got to know each other at Cal State Fullerton when I was on the faculty there, and she took an atmospheric chemistry class from me. So, you know, you've been doing this long enough. It's really exciting to see people sort of take your subject seriously. But I have to say, I'd never seen anybody take it to the extreme that Tracy has, the atmosphere in space. You know, really impressive. But you know, what she's done is absolutely amazing, and especially for the younger folks in the audience. She is just a wonderful example of what it takes to really follow your heart's desire. It doesn't fall in your lap. You have to work hard at it. And to give you an example, she started out when she was very young. Her father was an electrical contractor, and he'd take her out on job sites and weekends to check things. And he'd say, don't just go out and play, put a belt on and start working. So she became an electrician. She could wire your house, right? At Cal State Fullerton, she was on the track team, and one of her fellow track members was deaf, so she learned sign language. At UC Davis, all graduate students here know you are paid such generous salaries, right? This is before unionization, too. And that she saved enough money to become a pilot, get a pilot's license, because she knew that would be important. And she learned Russian, because she knew that would be important. When she was here as a postdoc, and so John Heminger and I, where's John here? Wave your hand. Here he is. So John and I had a joint postdoc, a special one, and we interviewed about half a dozen people, and we were very interested. What are you going to do long term? What are your long-term plans? And about half of them said, I want to be an astronaut. It was kind of like, I want to be a plumber. It was sort of like this was normal. But Tracy was the one who had really devoted her life to this. So when she was here, she lived as far away as she could, so she'd have to bike in. She was in the university pool swimming with weights on. Fortunately, you haven't had to test that one, right, as an astronaut. That's very good. So she's, she really has worked incredibly hard. So when she started with us, she said, well, I have to tell you, it's supposed to be a 2-year postdoc. I've applied for the astronaut corps, but nobody ever gets in the first time. And he said, yeah. So, I knew Tracy from Fullerton. And John said, yeah, people just don't get in the first time. In fact, they may never get in. You don't know Tracy, right? 2,500 applicants. So on paper, they get it down to 250. She's in the pool. She's going to make it. No. So then she gets 100, goes to Houston for all the tests. So a month later, she's running down the hall screaming, she's an astronaut, right? So at the time, she was the youngest astronaut, and I think there's a great picture somewhere of her with the oldest astronaut, John Glenn. So she's been up 3 times now, and she just got back in September from her last tour of duty on the space station, 6 months. And so we're really excited to have you here, Tracy, and we really appreciate you making the time to come back and spend time with us and share your experience. So let's all give Tracy another big welcome.
Okay. Ow, this is loud enough. I don't think I need this. Well, thank you, Barbara, so much for that introduction, and Hal and Sergey, thank you very much for kicking things off. There's so much I want to say, but I'm glad there's a clock up there to keep me on time, because I can certainly, as I say, jibber-jabber for a long time, especially coming back here to UC Irvine. Though I only spent a year here, the roots that I got to establish here have been long-lasting, and it's made every trip back home after every space flight I've had that much sweeter to get to come back here and to share it with Barbara and my longtime friends in the Finlayson Pitts group and all of you. So I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere, and I just want you to know on behalf of myself and George how grateful we are that you took the time to be here. And so I'm going to try not to talk too much and just show you some great footage of my mission to give you a flavor of what it's like to be in space, to work on board the International Space Station, and what it's like to look back on this beautiful planet. As Barbara had mentioned, it's very fragile, very tender, and very special amidst the stark blackness of our universe. And so I look forward to sharing that with you. Again, I wrote down a few things that I wanted to make sure I mentioned before the video. I wanted to, before I get too much further, also mention how much how grateful I am to my beloved, as Barbara mentioned. George being here is really special. We don't get to spend much time together, let alone travel together. So this is a real treat. And of all the people in my life that's given me a lot of support, I owe so much to him for not just his support, but his love, his friendship, and all the sacrifices. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you and how grateful I am that he's here. Thank you. And also, as Barbara mentioned, this is the place where I received the call from NASA, letting me know that I had been selected in the 1998 class of astronauts. And so, like she said, I went screaming through the hallways. And but what's funny is that when I got the call, I was in such disbelief that I started to hyperventilate. And the chief of the office who had given me the call had noticed that I stopped breathing. And he said, "I'll tell you what, Tracy, how about I call you back. I'll give you some time to calm down and gather yourself, and then I'll call you back and we'll talk more details." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And my office mate at the time, Bill Barney, that was so long ago. He didn't even look up. He just goes, "I take it that was NASA," and. I started screaming, and I made it, and I bolted out the door, ran down the hallway, ran up the stairs to the lab where the rest of my group was, and just let out, all of my excitement about being selected, and we were all excited, jumping up and down, and sooner or later I was like, wait a minute, he's calling back. I got to get back to the phone. And so I went running back to my office and got there in time, and the chief, his name was, his call sign's Taco, and he says, "Hey, I tell you what, Tracy, 24 hours from now, a press release will go out with your name and your classmate's name. And until then, we'd like you to limit the news to just your immediate family." And he hears this silence, and he's like, "I take it we're a little late." I was like, a little bit. It was like the whole hallway of students now know about this, and so, but I got the job anyway, and so my excitement started here, and I just, again, I have so many fond memories of this place and the people, so it's fun to be back. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to show you my post-flight video. My husband likes to joke that, we go into space for 6 months, we come back, and life doesn't slow down. We're, going through reconditioning, we're going through baseline data collection, science results. They're doing technical debriefs, and then they hand me a video and they say, "Here's your mission, go talk about it." And so the video that I have is almost as new to me as it is to you. And it is also very fast-paced because there's a lot that goes on in trying to figure out how to tell the story. So I want to up front tell everybody that it's going to move pretty fast. And so there's audio associated with it, so you'll get to hear calls being made on the radios and on board. And I don't want you to miss that, and I don't want to talk over it, but I'll try to interject if I think it's necessary to clarify anything, but hopefully we'll have time afterwards for questions, and I can address anything that might be confusing or not clear. But two things I want to give you a heads up about. Our mission was full of, science and spacewalks, launches, landings, visiting vehicles, Earth observations, lots of everyday life, but also a few unexpected events, and too many to actually incorporate into the video. But the first one was my launch. My launch took 2 attempts. The first one was terminated 20 seconds prior to engine ignition. And the launch vehicle had detected an issue with one of its boosters and shut down. And we in the cockpit didn't know what was going on. We just knew that we weren't moving anywhere. The video it transitions really fast to show you that event, and then we pick up right with our second attempt. And so just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So just pay close attention to the audio. And then the second event was with the spacewalks. We had 3 planned, and on our first spacewalk, we made 2 attempts. And the first one was terminated because of a suit issue. The second one was terminated because of a system on board that had, my umbilical had sprung a leak. And I've I've tormented myself trying to figure out how much of the story to tell you now and how much to just let you listen and just hear how the intensity of our voice and the sportiness of and the solemn looks on the people inside the airlock that were supporting us kind of tell the story. But happy to, at the end, clarify anything. But what basically happened was that inside the crew lock, which is the compartment that spacewalkers are placed into, that the hatches are closed. We bring the pressure down to vacuum to match space. We open up the hatch to the outdoors, and then we are given a go to remove the umbilical from our suit, which means that our suit is powered by itself and all the systems are running to keep us alive. Well, once I had removed my umbilical, which is called an SCU, it instantly sprung a leak, and water was forcefully driving out of one of the ports. It had covered my visor with ice instantly, and I was blinded to what was going on. And a whole series of things happened from that point that the video is not going to give you much insight into because, as luck would have it, we didn't have any video at the time. And so it was just myself and my crewmates that could see kind of what was going on. But it involved a lot of water, a lot of ice, and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of quick actions that had to take place in order to save ourselves. And so I hope you get a sense for that with the video, but listen closely to the audio because the transition between the first EVA attempt, spacewalk attempt, and the second one is kind of abrupt. So, but I'll hopefully walk you through some of that. So without further ado, just sit back, enjoy the sights and the sounds, and just imagine yourself in microgravity. I mean, literally, like think of yourself as you're watching everything that we're doing. And if everything in your life as you know it now didn't have a single place to rest, how would you manage it? And I'm talking about not just at home with your everyday life, but with your work. What would you do if you couldn't lay something on a table? Even something like fluid inside of a canister and a pump, trying to spray it, like I had to do with my hair, you'll see, becomes an entertaining event as you try to direct the flow of fluids where you want them to go. And so just imagine yourself in this environment, and some of the things that you take for granted will, I think, become apparent. And if you have any questions at the end, I'm looking forward to coming up with the answer. So without further ado, if we could start the video. Can we crank up the audio a little bit more? So this is our first launch attempt.
Go USA.
I launched on board a Soyuz
left
rocket.
the Site 254 integration building, allowing Novitsky, the Soyuz commander, to report that he and his crewmates were ready to proceed to the launch pad.
There's a lot of tradition and ceremony that takes place with each launch from the day we get to Kazakhstan to the moment we get here from the rocket.
Prepare to stand down for 24 hours. Copy. Department 30, copy. Department 10 is copy.
And the launch has been aborted.
Department
No launch.
This is significant
Crew is
because
safe on board. The
the
abort
Soyuz
occurring
is
at
such a
the
reliable
T-minus 22nd
spacecraft
mark.
that this hasn't happened in probably 25 to 30 years, if not longer.
And as you see, a large crowd of well-wishers.
And we're in the middle of a desert here. We've got tons of folks that are there
Novitsky,
wishing
the
us well.
Soyuz commander,
But we do
to
everything
report
all
that he
over
and his
again.
crewmates
2
were
days
ready
later.
to proceed to the launch pad.
That's my family. They're in about a mile and a half.
We now
2
have
miles from
engine
the launch
ignition.
pad.
Turbo pumps and engines up to flight speed, now at full throttle.
Engines to maximum thrust.
We have liftoff. Dyson, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya finally underway on a 2-day journey to the International Space Station.
So because our launch changed by 2 days,
Good
our
roll, pitch, and yaw
profile
program.
changed as well. So what would have taken us only 2
And we have
orbits,
first stage
basically
set.
3 hours to get the space station, now is taking us 34 orbits in 2.5 days. So we spent a lot of time inside the Soyuz during free flight. But here we are, coming on our final approach to the space
And this
station.
view from the external cross-air engineering camera on the Soyuz MS-25, a great view of the International Space Station. Good range, good rate of closure, standing by for contact and capture. Docking confirmed at 10:03 a.m. Central Time, 11:03 a.m. Eastern Time.
And then it's a very
There's Tracy
warm
Dyson
welcome
of NASA
inside
entering the
space
station for the third time. Once
There's a
again, the
crew of
hatch to
7
Soyuz
already on
opened
board
at
when we arrived.
12:26 p.m. Central Time. 1:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Tracy Dyson, Marina Vasilevskaya, Oleg Novitsky now on board the complex.
Go ahead.
Tracy, it's so great to see your smiling face back on ISS.
Kosta, thank you so much for those words, and thank you for everyone there in Mission Control in Houston, the flight control team, the team in the back room, and everybody there in the viewing room. This has been an incredible journey, one that we weren't quite expecting to last so long in free flight, but we're grateful for the time together because we know now that we're here, we're going to get started with some work. So it's great to be here. It's great to be working with all of you, and we're just thankful for all of your support.
And of course, most of the public knows them as those two who are stuck on the space station.
3,
but their names are Barry Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams.
Ignition.
And they are not only true heroes by making history as
Atlas V carrying American heroes.
Boeing's first spacecraft, crewed spacecraft test pilots. And Sonny's the first spacecraft test pilot, a female, to successfully dock with a spacecraft. Here they are docked to the front of the space station.
Carl Leonard Calypso, arriving.
They were so happy to have docked to the space station. Their approach onto the space station was a bit sporty. And the whole reason we have the International Space Station is to do science. And I can tell you it's very impressive, the level of sophistication in the investigations that are on board. Not only the number, but the quality of the work, the data. Some of it's exciting, like here, cardiac tissues being 3D printed. We have freezers that go down to -90 to preserve samples. We're looking at combustion. Here I am. I'm operating a robot from the International Space Station on the ground. And then here, students have written code to operate robots on board the International Space Station. My only job was to position it for them and do sign language to it. We also did a lot of stem cell investigations. Here's a fluorescence microscope that gets used by a lot of different investigations, but here
And Tracy, on 3, if
stem
you see
cells.
storage side, the face goes up.
Do you want me to take the camera and give you a closer look inside?
Here I'm working with the Japanese Space Agency, Tsukuba, working on an investigation looking into combustion and ignition. Here's a life science glove box and some stem cell research. This research project actually had an issue, and it went from being their technician to being their troubleshooter. So it was really interesting to help at that level. And then this is a plant growth, and I'm setting up lights, watering the plants. This is brain tissue, stem cell tissue that I'm just exchanging media, washing out the waste. And this is the experiment that I don't even have insight into what's going on inside the box. My job is to plug it in and pull it out. I don't ask questions, I just do what I'm told. But the researchers are just jazzed about the research, the data that they get from these experiments. And then we also do maintenance.
With you, you were correct in that assumption. Extending the work volume partially gives you more access in the back of the rack where you're cleaning the screens.
And why just float through a module when you can twirl around in it? big event. And this was going to be my first time leading
Good morning.
a
It's
spacewalk.
June 13th, 2024, and you're looking at a live view of two NASA astronauts inside the Quest airlock, preparing for today's planned 6.5-hour spacewalk. Today, NASA astronauts Tracy C. Dyson, who is on the right side of your screen, and Matt Dominic on the left side of your screen will exit the station's Quest airlock to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box. It's called a radio frequency group.
That
from the
vanilla
communications
breakfast
antenna
drink
on
that
the
you see
starboard
floating.
truss of the International
Watch
Space
my
Station.
reaction.
This will be the third attempt at removing that faulty electronics box.
Like we can't understand why this thing keeps
Additionally,
appearing
today,
in the weirdest
pair
places.
will collect samples for analysis to understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory. Today's spacewalk will not be proceeding as planned.
Okay, so we
The
had a
crew
suit
has
issue
just begun
on
taking
Matt's
off their
suit,
suits.
and
That was
so
approximately 6:25 a.m. Central
was
Time.
not safe for us to
Again, this is
continue
about an
this
hour
spacewalk, and
before
so
the
we
crew was
terminated.
anticipated to exit the Quest airlock. Here's a better view of the two spacewalkers. That's Matt Dominic on the left and Tracy Dyson with her helmet still on the right. The spacewalk today with NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson and Matt Dominic will not be proceeding as scheduled due to a suit discomfort issue. The crew is now out of their suits.
So about a week later, we had to switch crew members. So Mike went in place of Matt, and everybody had to learn new
The crew
roles.
aboard the International Space
Except for
Station
me,
are
and,
working through the pre-breathe procedures ahead of
we
today's
tried it all over
spacewalk.
again
The
about a week
spacewalk
later.
is scheduled to last about 6.5 hours.
So like I said, we get put inside the crew lock there. The rest of the crew is inside what's called the equipment lock. That stays at ambient pressure. We go down to vacuum. I open up the hatch and then
disconnect your SCU from your DCM and install the DCM cover and stow the SCU in its pouch.
Oh my goodness. My helmet popped up. Oh no, it was just ice crystal. Oh wow. Blowing out of my SCU, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of particulates flowing around here.
Yeah, can we turn the water off of the UIA?
And you can reconnect your SCU to your DCM and we'll take a look at that.
A lot of water flowing.
Is it still coming out?
I don't think we can do it.
Yeah. There's water everywhere here.
Okay, let's get your SCU reconnected to your DCM.
Yeah, there's literally water everywhere here now.
Yes, I can verify that the water was coming from the SCU side.
Okay.
Bye.
so you see the faces of our crewmates inside the equipment lock. They were just as
my SCU and they just locked.
disturbed as we were. Right there, Sonny's pointing a camera inside the crew lock where you can see Mike's head and my feet. And prior to this moment,
So
there
with
was
both
a
of you on
blizzard happening
SCUs
inside
and
the
locked,
crew
we're going
lock.
to terminate for the day.
I got a frozen finger, so if I could turn my glove heaters on, that'd be great. Can I turn on my glove heaters?
Yes, you can. You can turn on your glove heaters.
As I attempted to put this umbilical back onto my
Just
suit,
want to make sure how you feel in the suit. We understand your hands
ice
are
had
cold.
developed on my glove, and I couldn't see it because my visor was fogged up, was iced over.
I brushed it away
And it basically acted like a sublimator and took all the heat out of my hand, and so it was
wasn't out of the
burning.
house, but there was enough of a gap in the thermal cover that I could see the ice crystals were flowing out there. And then, just like a snow cone machine, there was ice forming at that port on the SCU. It was instantaneous. As soon as I lifted I unlocked it, and as soon as I lifted it away, it was a blast all over my visor. So it wasn't until I cleared the ice that I could see it was pouring out of the SCU.
Hey, Houston, also, I was happened to be out the gym window I saw a pretty good storm going out that way, heading port. Thousands of ice crystals, just so you know.
What's significant about that is that the gym where Butch was making that call is on the absolute opposite side of the space station.
Central,
so in a
9:51
vacuum,
a.m.
that
Eastern.
just tells you how forcefully the water was coming out, and I was holding it outside the crew lock hatch, and it was shooting water all the way over to the other
And you
side
can
of the
now
space
see
station.
NASA astronaut Mike Barrett currently being moved from the crew lock to the equipment lock portion of the International Space Station's Quest airlock.
And there was no way to turn off the water because of the details of the system, and so they needed me to put it back on my suit and point this fire hose back at my powered suit, which there's not enough time to show you all the video and the audio that proceeded from that point.
Can
But
now
there
see
was also
NASA
a discussion
astronaut
about the
Butch Wilmore
safety
in
of
the center
doing
of your
that.
screen. He's part of NASA's Boeing crew flight test currently on board the International Space Station. We now have confirmation that NASA astronauts
So once we
Tracy
get out of our
Dyson and
suits,
Mike
the
Barrett
two crew
are
members you
out of
see there,
their
Matt and
spacesuits
Jeanette, they have a
following
whole lot of
today's
work to
31-minute
clean up our
spacewalk.
suits and to clean up the
While the
airlock.
spacewalk was intended to last 6.5 hours, it was terminated shortly after the suits were set to battery power at 7:46 a.m. Central, 8:46 a.m. Eastern. The crew had opened.
To say this was heartbreaking was an understatement. But we did get 31 minutes of spacewalking time out of this ordeal. Okay, so now that that's over, let's just relax a little bit. Someone had asked me earlier about whether we exercise, and we do. We have 3 different exercise devices on board. This is our workhorse, if you will, the ARED, or Advanced Resistive Exercise Device. It's basically a universal weight set, and every crew member on board uses this every day. What's nice is that it's positioned right next to the cupola windows, and so you often get to incorporate viewing out the portal there during your workouts. And it does a lot for your peace of mind and your mental state up there to have this precious time. The ground doesn't call you, your crewmates don't come and bug you. There's Sunny floating by. I'm on the cycle ergometer. CVIS is the name of it. It's one of our 2 cardiovascular devices. And your heart is a muscle too, so it shrinks up there too if you're not using it. And then our treadmill. And then those of you with long hair will appreciate this. Don't let the name fool you. No rinse is not a no rinse. But if you got long hair, you have to rinse it out because it just doesn't come out of your hair otherwise. And it's hard to do that without spraying water all over the place. But it does feel kind of like a spa day when you get to wash your hair on board with water. So we look forward to these moments. There's that spray bottle I'm telling you about. I have to like do this, trying to find the CG and I know a lot of you don't even care about how we go to the bathroom in space, but if you were curious, this is, I'm just kidding. Everybody wants to know, right? How we go to the bathroom in space. Well, that was our bathroom, our toilet there.
Wild rice salad here. Pretty much healthy.
Sunny and I started to make a video together on the trash management on board, and it turned into how to make food.
We each have slots that we stick our food in. And so we're going to dispense the water, make sure it's turned off, and then get that water mixed with the product, push it around. And then something like this we'd probably stick into the oven. And then let it warm up and soften up the rice granules. And so we'll just stick that right in here.
Now watch me for a moment here. Watch this. This is my 3rd trip to space, and my food is attached to my nose. We celebrated lots of birthdays on board, mine included. But this is how we do it. We find ways of making birthday cakes. There's Sunny's on Pirate Day. The Russians made a really nice gift for her and me as well. That's my bouquet made out of a really good cheese dessert. But and then we have special guests that come into mission control, like Al Roker from the Today Show, and then Christopher Lloyd. Everybody knows.
Pretty amazing, but I used to know that.
It's actually amazing for us to get to
It's fun when we get to take a break from our daily grind.
You've kind of filled the world with
See
stories
folks like
for
that.
many decades here.
This probably needs no explanation. That's Jeanette. That's Mike. That's Sunny. It's yours truly. There's Butch. The full version version of this you can find on YouTube. And the Chinese, the Taikonauts on their space station made a parody off of this as well. This was his brainchild, this whole video.
Over the past few days on the International Space Station, we've had an absolute blast pretending to be Olympic athletes. We, of course, have had the benefit of weightlessness. We can't imagine how hard this must be to be such a world-class athlete doing your sports under actual gravity. So from all of us aboard the International Space Station to every single athlete in the Olympic Games, Godspeed!
And they played this actually at the Olympics, so it was quite an honor. Okay, I think this is what y'all been waiting for. Take a look at you guys on Earth. This is, well, of course, the Milky Way's in there too. Yeah, while we were up there, there was quite a lot of solar activity, magnetic storms, and we got to enjoy, as well as folks on Earth, an unprecedented number of aurora sightings. And as a chemist who spent a lot of time thinking and working with ionization, it's really cool to be able to be in your own vacuum chamber watching it happen with the gases of the atmosphere against the backdrop of the International Space Station. It's pretty cool. And when you're, when you just look out the window and look at the structure of the space station, it's absolutely mesmerizing to see what human ingenuity and teamwork can do. But when it's at the backdrop of our beautiful planet, it really is breathtaking. These are the solar arrays on the port side of the space station. Sped up, of course. Look at that, tracking the sun. And lightning's always fascinating. From storms that are just stationary to them that go streaking across the whole continent. There's also hurricanes. Hurricane Beryl not only impacted, it impacted folks on the ground, but in mission control as well. They had to bring up a backup mission control. Right here you're seeing another aurora sighting, but with the Starliner, the Boeing Starliner capsule doing a static hot fire test of their thrusters at the same time. And then the eclipse, this is what it looks like from space. It's just, we see the shadow. We actually don't need those glasses. And then, of course, we have a number of visiting vehicles, which to us mean cargo. So we have three different providers. We have SpaceX Cargo Dragon on this side, the Russian Progress in the middle, and then Northrop Grumman Cygnus on the far right. Each of them have a different flight profile. Each of them have a different method of approaching the space station. The Russian Progress is an automated vehicle, docks automatically, but it has a manual backup. That's my commander, Oleg Kononenko, and he's ready to take over in case this thing can't do it by itself. Then there's the SpaceX Dragon, which is fully automated, and it only has crew monitoring its progress, and we can send it aboard if necessary. But then Cygnus is automated up to a point, but then we grab it with the robotic arm and we pull it in. we also send a command to release it. They also do this really cool thing where they name each of their vehicles after a former deceased astronaut. And the one that was with us was named after a very dear person, Patty Robertson. You'll see that in a second. But this is Jeanette opening the hatch to that Cygnus and dumpster diving, basically. The Cygnus is really great because it becomes our trash truck after it brings stuff up. I don't want to tell you guys about what it does to the atmosphere, but the SpaceX is...
3, go for back away. We just want to thank also the team for naming it after Patty. She was such a special person to all of us, and it's a privilege for her classmates to be here on board as well as on the ground to see her fly in space. When you love somebody... Hey, Alex, hold on. When you love somebody, you gotta let them go.
So Patty was, that was Sunny you heard there, me in the beginning.
We all really loved her.
Patty was a close friend of ours, and it was very emotional for us to be there with her, her namesake, and then to be the ones to send the command to have it return back to Earth. And so here we are getting ready to come home. Myself, Alexander Nico, and Nikolai Chub get dressed in our Sokol suits and strap in for a nice cozy ride.
Separation is confirmed.
Physical separation
This was in September.
confirmed. The Soyuz
The end of,
MS-25
September.
is free of its mooring.
Please.
Expedition 71 is in the history books. Expedition 72 officially underway.
And these are the most quiescent moments right here, and then all sorts of bells and whistles and fire happens. You look out the window and you see parts of your spacecraft are blading right off. When the parachute comes out, though, wow, is that a party?
Roscosmos television, you can see the Soyuz descending under its main parachute.
And then about a meter from the ground, these soft landing jets
Touchdown.
fire right there, to break
Right on
our
the money.
fall.
A textbook touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 6:59 a.m. Central Time.
And then you tumble.
7:59 a.m. Eastern Time. 4:59
And then the
p.m.
capsule for us
at
came
the landing
to
site
a stop.
in Kazakhstan.
Heads up. And it's all about the Matrushka doll with your face on it when you come back, and then you get carried to the tent where then the team helps you get out of your spacesuit into your flight suit, and then you take planes, trains, and automobiles to get back to Houston 24 hours later, 24 to 27 hours later. My chief let me walk down these steps all by myself, which is not typical. But there's Vanessa Weiss, our director of Johnson Space Center, there to greet me. My husband's around there somewhere as well. These are the crew that was up there before me, good friends. And then that's Floral. I was her backup, and then she and I traded places while we were in space. She came home and I stayed at her place, and so it was a real nice reunion to have her there with me. So that's just a real quick look at the 6 months I've recently spent in space. So thank you. So Barbara, do we have time for questions, or do we have interest in questions, or? Okay. Oh, I see we've got some hands up. You're in charge of this, right?
Yep. So we were going to, there are people who didn't make it in the auditorium, in the overflow room, so we were going to give them the first shot at questions, and they've been writing things on cards, but I think they haven't gotten here yet, so it means people in the auditorium here.
The results are in.
So let's see, do we have, oh, here comes Melissa with stuff. Just a minute. And so I don't forget, there was one change in the program. So we said Tracy would be available for autographs afterwards. So the bad news is she is not. The good news is something even better. She'll be available for selfies with you. So
it'll go quicker.
So how do you handle medical emergencies in space? For example, emergency surgery.
Oh goodness. Okay, so each one of us are trained. Trained as a crew medical officer, and this training is pretty involved and elaborate. We actually go to the medical center downtown Houston, and we go to several different units: emergency unit, the critical care, the burn unit. We learn dentistry. We get all sorts of skills on how to care for somebody with up to minor surgery with our flight surgeons teleprompting in, so they can give us some guidance for some of those real serious things. But the good news was that we had Dr. Michael Barrett on board, and he's a medical doctor. And so sometimes you get lucky and you have somebody that really knows what they're doing. But we do have the capability to do minor surgery, but that would be under the supervision of one of our flight surgeons, who we would just privatize the video and they would be talking in our ear the whole time. And so far we haven't had to do anything like that.
Good, okay. So what was the transition from a PhD in chemistry to a career in being an astronaut like? Do you often use knowledge from your PhD and postdoc work in your current position?
Okay, so the transition was I filled out an application, and that was really it. And I did a lot of talking at NASA. And using the skills, I like to joke that I actually use my skills as a construction worker a lot more on the board of the space station than I do anything else, because things are breaking. We have to get clever with some of the fixes. But where my PhD really came into play, I think, was in what it takes to get a PhD, right? Anybody that's in here that's gone that route knows that it takes just a lot of hours that just don't get accounted for in the data that you get to present at a conference, right? I mean, you are in the lab, you're working things out, you're bugging your professor, the whole process of studying something so intently and so intensely. And then when you go through your qualifying exams and you're asked questions by super smart people about your thing, and you got to know your stuff. I mean, all of that just develops you as a confident, competent person. And I would say that the journey I took in getting my PhD, which I never set out to get a PhD, it just kind of like that's how it happened, really grew me as a person, an independent thinker, a problem solver, and a confident individual. So that's about all I can say about that.
Did you forget what up was?
It is funny how you get a new normal in space. And up, it doesn't even make sense. We have coordinates inside the space station that are oriented, what we say in 1G. And so when we're oriented at something, because the labeling on the rack is this way, we say that's 1G, but it often feels more comfortable to flip ourselves around. In fact, when we're doing a spacewalk, it's really to our advantage that we can flip ourselves around and be comfortable in all sorts of orientations and not think about what's up or what's down. And especially when it comes to seeing your feet with the backdrop of an Earth that's going really fast. You know, if you think that I have to remain in this orientation, it can almost be a detriment. And so we try to kind of go with the flow, if you will, and change our orientation.
So these two questions are very similar. What surprised you the most your first time in space, and what was your biggest oh no moment?
I think my biggest surprise on my first flight was that I didn't realize looking out the window at what I would actually see, because nobody really told me that looking at the stars above the atmosphere, where there's nothing between you basically in this pane of glass and the stars, that it would look almost 3D. That if you look at it close enough or long enough, you can actually make out that there's depth. Like if you do it from here, you've got this atmosphere between you and the stars, and there's a lot of diffusion and of light and lights are blinking. But when you're above the atmosphere, the light from the stars and the other planets is steady, and you can actually make out the depth of between stars. And you this one might look bigger than this one, but you can somehow tell that this one's closer. I don't know how to describe it any more technically than that, but that was really surprising to me, and it's very mesmerizing. What was the other question? I got lost in the reverie.
They were the same question. That's sorry. They
Okay.
were combined, sort of, yeah.
Okay.
So please explain the role of the mobile transporter in the ISS.
Oh, well, points for whoever asked that question. Little known fact, we have a mobile transporter.
Previous high-tech manager.
Okay, well, that jives. Okay, the mobile transporter, we call the MT, is on the forward face of the space station, it's the pressurized modules make up the longitudinal axis that basically follows the path of travel over the Earth. Well, the lateral structure that you see is the truss. And the truss is basically what houses all of the equipment out there, and it holds the solar arrays, but it also has this track that runs in front of it. And the mobile transporter is like a little train that's on those tracks. And on that train, or on that cart, the mobile transporter is what's called the mobile base, and it has 4 grapple fixtures that our robotic arm can be based off of. And a lot of operations take place on this, and we can move the mobile transporter towards the port or the starboard side, and then operate our big robotic arm just about anywhere on board the space station based on that mobile transporter. But nobody ever asks about that. That's really cool.
Well, good. We're keeping you on your toes.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So I'm sitting with 2 people interested in following in your footsteps. If there is one thing you would say to them, what would it be?
Oh, you mean becoming an astronaut, those footsteps? Well, I think that the best advice I can give, looking back at my pathway and the pathway of my colleagues who have achieved the same goal, is to, whatever you are doing in life, enjoy it. I mean, do it with passion, because when you do the things that you really enjoy doing, the best in you is going to come out. And that's what you want, that's what we want. The results that you get are going to be far more fabulous because there's a piece of you in it. And if you're following the advice of somebody and it just doesn't resonate with you, but you feel like you got to do it because that's the way others have gotten into the astronaut corps, well, you're going to stagnate. You're just not going to reach the level that you were meant to reach. And so I just encourage you, whether you want to be an astronaut or some other profession, that make it be your passion that you follow, and don't accept anything less than that. And I think you'll go where you're hoping to be.
Thank you. Yes. Good. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And, that really fits in with the background I gave you. She worked hard to get here.
Oh, yeah.
Very hard, right? And continues to work hard. So what fields will be the most important in the next decade for space exploration?
Oh, well, now that's a really good question. I don't have a good answer for, because we're going to see some changes coming up here soon because, the space station's getting older, and we're going to, at some point, have to decommission that. We're hoping that other companies, commercial companies, will follow suit and build space stations. And so you're going to see a host of different purposes for those space stations. Ours is for science and international collaboration. But who knows what other kinds of space stations are out there waiting to be created. But also, we're going to the moon, we're going to Mars, and the fields necessary to do that are going to range from, the obvious, like geosciences to medical doctors to, agricultural experts. You name it. It's people who know material science, because now we're going to be, sustaining operations on another body, a celestial body, and what are the materials that we're going to need? How are they going to hold up? How are we going to provide them? Because it's not like the International Space Station, 250 miles above the surface. It's 250 1,000 miles away from the surface. And so you can't just send a cargo ship to it. And so I think that what we're going to see is the backgrounds, the disciplines it takes to do these things is going to be so widespread that probably any kind of interest that's out there is going to have its hand in space exploration coming up.
So what were some of the differences in the experience of liftoff from the shuttle to the Soyuz?
Oh, I love that question because it's vastly different. The shuttle, if you imagine yourself in the cockpit of the shuttle attached to an external tank that has, the 3 main engines underneath it and then 2 solid rocket boosters. And that is all bolted to a launch pad. And when so the main engines on the shuttle light first, and they come up to a certain percentage of their max thrust. And then seconds later, then the solid rocket boosters light. And when those things light, that's like the hand of God underneath. And it's like, pow, and you're raising up with all certainty. I know when you're looking at it on television, it doesn't look like it's moving anywhere. But when you're in the cockpit, you're definitely certain you're going somewhere. And it's like a big thrust in the chest. And you feel that immense power underneath you because it's slamming down into concrete. When you're on the Soyuz, it's liquid engines, it's kerosene basically, and instead of being bolted to the launch pad, it's actually suspended from the launch pad, and its thrust has to overcome its weight in order to be lifted off even. So inside the cockpit there, we don't really have a good indication that we've lifted from the launch pad. We actually have a timer that we have to set, and when it hits our launch window, and we hear things rumbling, we're like, okay, we're taking off. And then now on my second flight on the Soyuz, they've upgraded the avionics, and so we actually have a display that shows that, but in the old days, it was just a timer. And so that's why when our Soyuz, the launch terminated, we were sitting there going like, did we move? We're still here. That was weird. And we didn't have nobody talked to us in the cockpit yet about what had happened. We just were like, we're really not moving, right? So they are vastly different, the two vehicles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are your dreams for humanity's future in space? And your biggest dream, no matter how crazy?
What was the first part?
What are your dreams for humanity's future in space?
Oh, my dreams for humanity's future in space. Wow. My dream, just to put it in succinct terms, is that we do it together. I know that may sound, really obvious, but right? Because after all, we are planet Earth, right? And we should go to space as a planet and not just an individual country. And if I could say anything, pat the backs of NASA was their recognizing that we needed to do this, and not only opening up the door called International Space Station, but also in their attempts with Artemis and the Artemis Accords, and not just saying, hey, will you participate, but hey, will you uphold, the peaceful purposes of going to space. And when we do that as a whole planet, the things that we can accomplish are it's hard to even imagine because it's endless. So my hope for humanity is that we would go and do these things together as a planet. And then what was the other one?
What's your biggest dream, no matter how crazy?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how to admit that. It's kind of soon after my mission to think about going back up. I love flying in space, but I love my husband and my family, and I like being on Earth and taking a shower and having water fall on me and all that. I say for the true answer to this question, ask me in a couple of months, because I'm still trying to feel like I'm back home, because I'm still with every mission. We have a period called post-flight. And that is just as busy as the time we spend in orbit. And I haven't really gotten to slow down. And when you live where you work and you work where you live, and I know some of you do that here, but when you are in microgravity and you're so far away from your family and all of the things that happen on a daily basis here, it really does take a toll on you. And so it's kind of hard to dream about what I want to do next. But what I can tell you is that because I've been blessed with a fantastic husband, he said that when your chief asks you if you want to fly in space again, you better tell him yes. And so, so I can tell you I have my support of my beloved, and I would love to fly again if it works out. And we'll see with this next administration and our new NASA administrator if we're going to be able to continue the trajectory to the moon, because I think that would be a fascinating trip to take and to be a part of that. So I'll throw that one out there. How's that? Okay.
So I think we couldn't possibly go through all the questions we got from the overflow room, so we'd like to take a few from the auditorium here. So we have students with microphones to give you. So there's a hand waving up there. Do we have the students with microphones? Yes, we do. So right over here. I'm having a hard time seeing against the light.
I know, right?
Oh, there's somebody behind you there.
What's the most interesting experiment you've done on the ISS?
Oh, that's a good one. It's really hard to pick one. Because we did hundreds of, I think they told me my stats was like 107 or something like that, different experiments on board that I had literally a hand in. But one that's fun to talk about is BFF, which stands for the Biofabrication Facility. Redwire, this company that put their science on board, made this little facility. It's basically a plastic glove box, but inside is a 3D printer that prints human tissue. And my job as the crew member was to load this 3D printer with samples that were cardiac, stem cells and cardiac tissue precursors. And I didn't ever get to see the real definition of the cardiac tissue, but I did get to in addition to changing out the ink cartridges, the bio ink, whatever that kind of is, but I got to take the cassettes out that were contained this fabricated tissues, and then transfer them to these incubators, these really high-tech little boxes that act as incubators, and it just looked like a bunch of orange jelly stuff, but it looked really smart, and all the tubes going in and coming out of it. I was like, this is amazing that that somebody even thought about this, and that all of the steps it takes to get it from this concept to actual hardware, to get it onto the space station, and then to let somebody like me who doesn't have any background in that read procedures. And I had a remote guider who I got to know pretty well, and so it was fun to work on the project with him, and then the fact that they got results from it was really gratifying. And so I love to talk about Tango Lab. That was the black box you saw me pull out and push back in, but I have no idea what goes on inside that thing, but I bet it's really exciting. But yeah, some of those experiments, especially the biological ones, and I did not grow up academically really into biology, but I have to admit, they've got some of the coolest experiments. Another one that's really cool is called Gaucho Lung, and it's our sister school, UC Santa Barbara, the Gauchos, and it was called Gaucho Lung. And this was looking at gel-coated, the wicking properties of gel-coated tubes, and its application is in lung, the transport of pharmaceuticals in lungs, and children, babies are plagued with respiratory disorders that they put these plugs in their airway that are real small, and the tissues are so delicate that the intent is that it would administer medication at a very slow rate. But here on Earth, the properties of the transport of that pharmaceutical are not well understood or well controlled. And so what they're trying to look at it in space to take out gravity and to take out other factors to just get down to what the fundamentals of fluids through a gel-coated tube. And it was a real elegant and very simple experiment, tubes and clips, and I set up a camera with a backlight. I mean, my role in this was I have a PhD in chemistry, and I was like pinching valves, like plastic things to pinch tubes. that was all I did. But it was really fascinating science. So thanks for your question. That was more answer than you wanted.
So there's one over there. Jeremy, do you have a? Yep. The fellow in the red shirt.
Just throw the microphone and let someone catch it.
So is it rare for the suit to stop working and your hand's gonna like get really cold?
It is very rare. It's so rare that it scared all of us. Yeah, so what was even more surprising, that system isn't supposed to leak like that. And nobody had cameras to see what was going on. They just had my voice telling them what was going on. And what also compounded that problem was that, like I said, I couldn't see. And this umbilical goes onto my suit. And it's difficult to put on when you can see. It's even more difficult when you can't see. Once I got that on, it was still streaming out water. So if you can imagine a hose, and it's and they're telling you to point it back at yourself, and your suit's powered, and you're like, I learned at a young age that electricity and water just don't mix. And so, are we sure we want me to do this? But anyway, just to answer your question, it's very rare, and it was very tense for a little while as we were trying to figure out how I could get this back on. I would manage to do it, and I would say part of that is, maybe divine intervention, but part of it was just really good familiarity with my suit. I've trained a number of years in that suit, and I went, even a step further to, like Barbara says, I work really hard, and I imagine myself, my husband is a fighter pilot, I had to train a lot, any kind of emergency, the things you weren't even thinking about, and how would you recover if you were all by yourself. So it's the same kind of mentality that I would, hear of his preparation, where I just put myself in the mindset of, well, what if this happened? What if that happened? And there were a couple of things, probably not enough time to go through it, but there were a couple of things that I studied on board that just, to me, felt like I needed to understand this. One of them was the hatch mechanism, because I had to close the hatch with a frozen hand. And our hatch is really difficult to operate with a good hand. But also understanding my suit. I just thought one day I went in there with my eyes closed and hovered over my suit, and I started to feel with my gloved hand the layout of my suit to find landmarks with my fingers through a glove to see if I could tell where I was with my hands. And all of that paid off in the moment that I was called to do those things. And so, yeah, it was really rare, but pay attention to those things, that the little voice in your mind that says, hey, check this out. Just follow that. And I think it leads to good things down the road. I went way overboard answering your question, but thank you. You just inspired me to talk about it.
So there's a question over here.
Okay. Dr. Dyson, can you address, not counting errors like that, what are the physical challenges going from extreme gravity of liftoff to microgravity to coming back?
The challenges?
Physical challenges.
Oh, yeah. They are many. So, well, physiologically, like you just sitting here, like your heart is pumping blood through your system, and it works really hard to get it up to your head, right? Likewise, all of the fluids and organs in your body are where they are because you've lived in 1G your whole life. Then you get shot through the atmosphere, and you're experiencing G forces, so upwards of 3 to 5 Gs, so times the 3 to 5 times the force of gravity, and that's like now shoving everything down against the pressure, that your heart's trying to maintain. So you have to do these maneuvers. What's it called again, babe? The hic. maneuver. We have to learn these maneuvers with our breathing in order to counteract the pressure because it's pushing down really hard on your chest and it makes it really difficult to breathe. But once that's fleeting on the way up, a little bit more sustained on the way back. But once you get past that and you're now floating in microgravity, now everything's like having a big party and not telling your brain about it. So everything's like floating around, your blood's floating around, your organs are floating around, your brain is still like, wait a minute. It's not supposed to be like this. And so we have to do these techniques where we look straight ahead at something, especially if you're prone to motion sickness. If you're not, it's not such a bad thing, but if you go crazy on a roller coaster, pay attention to this part. So you want to make sure you're looking straight ahead at something. So we look at our panels and we fix our eyes on something until you get kind of like over the initial shock, if it was especially your first flight of wow, everything is floating. You get this sensation of congestion, so you feel stuffy because now fluid is up in crevices in your head that you didn't normally feel. And so some people get the spins, whether it's on the way up or on the way back, and it's especially provocative on return. In fact, you may have noticed when I was being carried away after landing, we kind of keep our heads as rigid as we can because just the slightest pitch forward and your gyro and your head's just spinning all out of control, and that's when you can throw up and really just on your face if somebody's not holding on to you. It's really, really sensitive in the first few hours of landing. But then there's other things like swelling that happens, especially when you return, that it could happen on one flight and not on another. It's just really kind of depends on your physiology sometimes going up there. I'm painting a really good picture of this, am I not? Like, you all want to go into space now because this just sounds so comfortable. Does that answer your question? I mean, I could probably keep talking about what it feels like, but
so I think we have worked you very hard tonight. And you're going to be willing to do some selfies.
Yes.
But before we break up, we need George up here too. Yes. So when you came in, you saw the Ode to Tracy on the International Space Station to the tune of Willie Nelson's On the Road Again. So the story behind that is that when she went up in March, I was privileged to be part of her private Facebook group. And we were trying to think, what could we do that would be fun for her up there? So I have the world's best research group. In fact, would they stand up, please? Everybody stand up who's in the research group here. Come on, come on. They're too shy. Come on. And where's Vero? And Mike, yeah. We're missing some. Back. So we were trying to figure out what could we do that would be fun. So we decided to do Willie Nelson's On the Road Again with revised lyrics. So that's why. So we did. The group recorded this, and we'd send her a new verse every month. Now, I have to say, our singing was not good, to say the least. And so but at least it caused you some amusement.
Oh, it was.
So you've got to open this.
Oh.
So.
I got to open it now?
Yeah. You got, yes. So there's a few things in there. And George, you can be opening yours at the same time.
All right. I was going to get a towel.
No, here, I'll take it.
Is it wrapped in the paper? Oh.
Yep.
Oh, I know where you're going with it.
You have to hold it up.
Oh, perfect. I always have them on hand.
So the lyrics are on the back, and on the front there's a picture of Willie. Oh, wow. And with Tracy singing the national anthem at it was a baseball game?
No,
or
this
football?
was the Final Four, March Madness.
Oh, basketball, okay. And George gets the same thing, but it's he and Tracy on the front, and then Southwest Airlines and an aircraft carrier. And then you have to keep digging.
Keep digging.
I'm going to thank my group. They're very clever. So you've got to get the next present.
Oh, I do? Oh.
Yes. So this is a series. So this is a climate change mug. So the deal is it shows all the continents and the oceans. When you put hot water or coffee in there, you will see what is going to be underwater in not too long. And if you get one of these, don't buy property in Florida. Yes, I would recommend. And then finally, so Tracy came and visited me in Big Bear a number of years ago, and the last present is some homemade chocolates from Nancy Walker from Big Bear for you to enjoy. So. So if you'd like to have a selfie with Tracy up there in a few minutes, please go up and there'll be a line, but it'll be a quick shot as you go. Okay, thank you.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for the very kind words.
Oh, no, listen, you're wonderful. You're such a wonderful heart.